Look to there.
Look, okay.
Look to that camera. This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook. We're here at the 2019 UIC Medical Cannabis Symposium Tweed Heads, and we're speaking with Janet Schloss, a good friend of mine, who's head researcher at Endeavour College of Natural Medicine and a clinician as well. And you're currently doing research looking into how various medicinal cannabis products can help patients with glioblastoma multiforme, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Which is a devastating disease. So take us through a little bit about the trial, how it was set up.
Okay, so this is something that was my baby, and that I've definitely seen the benefits of medicinal cannabis. And one of the worst things and one of the worst diseases is glioblastoma. But when looking at medicinal cannabis, we actually looked at what the in vitro type information was, and most of it was around glioblastoma with the most potential to actually help. So I was at a conference, an AIMA conference, about 3 years ago now, and I was speaking there on cancer, and Charlie Teo was actually there at the same time. And after we were having a discussion, I said, look, this is my idea that I want to run this trial on medicinal cannabis, and I want to do it on patients with glioma. And he said, great, let's do it. So that was the start of the actual trial, and then I did all the posting together to do the proposal, trying to get funding and stuff from that, which was ended up getting, like, we had huge discussions with both,
with the company?
With the company,
yeah.
For that, and we're looking at different sponsor options and stuff like that as well. And it all came about, and it finally started. It's taken a really long time to get up and running because of all the different hurdles that you have to go through when you're looking at a trial using medicinal cannabis in a high disease profile. But most of the trials at the moment on medicinal cannabis are looking at side effects. It's one of the same things that I'm getting a lot of. So I said, no, we don't want to do a side effect trial. We actually want to do an efficacy trial and looking at tolerability of different styles. Now, the other thing is that we also need particular ratios of medicinal cannabis, and we don't know which is going to be the right one. So in conjunction with Justin Sinclair, we searched around the world to find the right type of ratio that we were actually after. So we came down to the fact that we're going to do a 1-to-1 and a 1-to-4, and it had to be organic. It had to be a whole plant.
THC to CBD?
Yes.
Yep.
And it had to be an organic without any additives that was actually in there. So we ended up getting it made specifically for our trial. And what we have now is a randomised trial. It's a clinical trial, but it's not a randomised clinical trial, other than the fact that it's a tolerability one. So we have two different ratios on a whole range of different people, and we're looking at around 85 people. So we've got 84 enrolled at the moment.
So Justin's well versed in the entourage effect. So we've spoken THC to CBD. What about the terpenes? And did that present any hurdles when you were registering your trial?
Yes, it did. They don't care. When you register the trial itself, they don't really care about the other terpene stuff. All they care really about is THC. Because that's the one that has most of the side effects, that's the one that has the potential for interaction according to them, and
stigma.
And stigma, absolutely. So, but that's the thing, like, it's all these other cannabinoids in it, and we have obviously got this product tested to see what they actually were, and part of our trial is also testing what's in the blood.
So tell us a little bit about, you've gone through recruitment. Tell us a little bit about the recruitment phase and indeed where you're at the moment. I understand some people have completed the trial, so tell us a little bit about that.
We had the fastest recruiting trial I've ever been involved with and ever seen, really, where we had, like, even at the beginning when we did the media launch and stuff for it, we had over 500 people contact us within a week.
Right.
For it. So our recruitment was filled really quickly.
Forgive me, sorry. So these are all patients with glioblastoma?
No.
Right.
So of that 500, we've now had over 800 people contact us, but they're not. They're people who actually have a brain tumour, but a lot of them were metastasis.
Right.
So they had another type of cancer.
Yeah.
From there, we also had a number of people who actually had brain tumours, but they weren't glioblastomas. So of the people who had glioblastomas, is over 200.
So this speaks volumes of the clinical need. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Forgive that horrible pun. It's a no-brainer. So this says volumes about what needs to happen. Unfortunately, this is or has had to have been run from one centre, at least at this stage. What challenges has that presented to the patients?
Yeah, because it's it is a pilot study, even though it's a phase 2, we've only got one centre, which means we had people all over Australia, actually a lot of people overseas as well,
Right.
who were willing to come here for the 3 months at least to actually trial it. But every one of them has actually had to fly in 4 times. So once every 4 weeks, they actually have to fly in. And we've had people from West Australia, South Australia, Victoria, Tasmania, Queensland, Darwin. So each time, every 4 weeks, they fly in and fly out just to be able to be part of this trial, because all our analysis is actually there, all the bloods, and they can only get the medicinal cannabis from our trial at the Prince of Wales Hospital Pharmacy.
Yeah. And so what has that meant for their treatment?
Well, it also can impede their treatment, because part of flying, obviously, with a brain tumour, and if they're on dexamethasone, they actually have to increase their level of dex to be able to fly while they're actually here, and then also till they get back. Now that has its own effects. It's a steroidal effect. So maybe they've gone from 2 milligrams of dex up to 6 or 8, so they can actually fly, and that can actually impede their ability. So unfortunately, when you're looking, this is a horrible disease, and people die,
Yeah.
and the pressure and ability to things. A lot of the people, there's a number of people who wanted to be part of the trial but couldn't travel, which is not unusual for people with a brain tumour and a glioma. So just having that one site has impeded people's involvement, but also has had, I think, an impact on the people who actually have the brain tumour who are still part of our trial.
Do you think the adjustment of medical therapy to be able to travel to that one point, that central point, to receive the cannabis treatment, do you think the adjustment of medical treatment could affect the results of the cannabis?
There is a potential that they could have some involvement with how they're actually going. And I think one of the things we have noticed is a couple of people who had a seizure activity because I think of the flying things, and that in itself can then affect our outcomes. So ideally, the next trial, because the idea of this is actually to gain a whole amount of information to be able to then feed into the next trial to make it a lot more efficient, a lot more easier. So ideally it would be best to have a trial with every capital city so people don't actually have to travel. I mean, we can't ideally have it in everywhere within Australia.
No.
But if we can actually have it in every capital city so people don't actually have to fly, that will actually be a huge impact.
But we do know that people living in rural areas receive less efficacious in treatment. They have poor prognoses. So do you think it's feasible that, perhaps not the next trial, but in future trials, that dispense centrally to a regional area or another state, a central state area, and then dispense regionally to wherever the patient, the local pharmacy, for instance, so that it can be picked up from there? Would that be a feasible type of approach?
Yes, there's actually a really good opportunity potentially. One of the medical oncologists now has what's called the MAGMA study, and he's got it's called the MAGMA study. And what it is they have a group of abilities of every oncologist around Australia. So
Right.
It's all on this database, and it's all actually being able to be part of a trial. So they have all these different arms, and there's potential that we could put a cannabis arm into that, which means that any oncologist throughout Australia could actually be part of this trial, and the patient would never actually have to travel.
For appropriate people who are accepted into the trial.
That's exactly right. But in doing so, it would actually, the cannabis is only one arm of this particular thing. So that's a potential.
And what do you see as the acceptance by the oncologists?
Well, there's been a mixed response from some of them. There's some people who are really interested to see what's actually going to come out of there because they want answers. At the moment, they get asked a lot about medicinal cannabis, and one of the things they say was, well, we don't know, there's no evidence and stuff like that. Then you've got other people who are just no, it doesn't work. We've had a couple of medical oncologists who talk to us say, well, cannabis can cause cancer.
Right.
So, there's this real mixed response at the moment from the fraternity.
Has David Caldecott gotten a hold of these oncologists?
I wish he had. Man, I love that guy.
This is the thing, is that those people who have whatever opinion it is, if they don't know, if they're unsure, that's fine to be unsure. It's something you've never dealt with, but for goodness sake, be educated on it. So now that we have this education from David Caldecott and through UIC, that education is available, they really should be To fulfil medical prudence, they should be investigating some sort of education to at least know what they're talking about and know the facts.
I totally agree with you. I think for the medical oncologists, I think it's different to the GPs. I actually don't think they're actually aware of this education process, because I've actually talked to a number of them, of the ones I actually work with, and I said, well, have you know that there's this cannabis teaching things? And they said no. So I don't know how I think it's fantastic we've actually got this opportunity, but I don't know how it's advertised and why we're not actually telling the medical oncologists that we actually have this, so that they then understand the process, because they're the ones being asked all the time.
Yeah. So it's certainly moving, but it needs to move faster.
Yeah, and this is unfortunately a really slow-moving industry. I'm not going to say profession, not an industry. So industry on the medicinal cannabis side, but a profession on the oncology side.
And I know we can't speak about data yet, but just a quick wrap-up, if you like, of tolerability and acceptance by the patients.
Yeah, what I can do is give you some feedback from some of the patients. And what I can say is that I've had so many tears and from like a lot of the patients, and we've been given so many gifts, and what we've given them is hope. Every one of them has had some form of benefit from being on the trial, has seen benefit. We haven't got the data to show exactly what it is, but their actual feedback has been phenomenal. You know, we've got some people who's been in a wheelchair to start, and because of their operation weren't able to speak or walk very well. By the end of it, they were actually able to stand. We've had another lady who's also in a wheelchair who had difficulty, like she wanted to say yes but would say no and couldn't string words together. By the end of the 12 weeks, she could actually say sentences and stuff like that. We saw a lot of people, nearly everybody's has benefited from sleep. They feel much more cognitively things. So on the tolerability, just as a feedback type thing, I definitely think the quality of life and the sleep aspect and their ability to co-function within the people who care for them has been greatly improved.
It's exciting research. We look forward to formal data coming out in the next few years, and obviously
this year.
This year.
So the first lot of data is going to come out at the end of this year.
All right. Well, we look forward to
if I have to
future
get some
research
sleep.
with larger cohorts. Thanks so much for joining us, Janet,
You're
on
more than
FX
welcome.
Medicine today. This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook.